Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Think Future. My name is Calabucas, and once again, we're coming in July from deep in the heart of Silicon Valley, California. We're talking innovation, startups, the future. Not necessarily those, and not necessarily in that order. If you're watching on YouTube, smack that subscribe button and hit that bell so you can be notified when a new show pops up. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast service, please subscribe and put up a review on Apple Podcast. I'd greatly appreciate it. So, about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, drove down to Palm Springs for a little bit of R&R, a little bit of time off. You know, as a digital nomad, I can pretty much work from anywhere, and I was able to work from there for an entire week. And that was a lot of fun. I went to Santa Barbara on the way down, went to Palm Springs, spent a week at one of the coolest hotels in Palm Springs, real nice mid-century modern hotel, had beautiful views every morning when I got up. Then I drove back on the 5. Highway 5, Interstate 5 runs up the middle of California. And one of the things I noticed, first of all, is that most drivers suck really badly. It's a two-lane road. In each direction. And I think the speed is 70 miles an hour because it's pretty much straight, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. You have to worry about too much. But the drivers were horrible. Absolutely horrible. And I've mentioned this before on another show, is that I cannot wait for autonomous driving to come in, because if you ask me, driving is one of those things that human beings, we have too much brain power to do that. We spend too much time thinking in order to do something like driving. I think machines, we should probably get to autonomous driving sooner as opposed to later. I think autonomous driving, once we get to autonomous driving, it can never be soon enough to get to autonomous driving, because everyone drove like crap. First of all, did any of these people actually go to driving school? Because when I went to driving school, you were supposed to stay on the right and pass on the left. But most everybody was sitting in the left lane the entire way and driving below the speed limit. Now, I don't know if they were on their phones. I don't know if they were playing Candy Crush or Fortnite or whatever while they were driving, but it was desperately annoying. And then the last thing that I noticed, that a lot of these drivers were super timid. Timidity was the number one trait I saw amongst all of these drivers. None of them wanted to drive boldly at all. They were all driving below the speed limit. They were all driving very timidly. And it led me to realize something, and this is something that I've seen for a long time, is that human beings, we tend to timidity. We tend to fear. We tend to do nothing. When there's options about doing something or doing nothing, even if it's egregious injustice that we're seeing, we tend to do nothing. We tend not to be bold. We tend to be timid. And I saw tons of timidity on that road. And when I thought about it, I thought to myself, well, this is something that's been going on forever. I remember when I was working with Yahoo a long time, we were in meetings and all these great ideas were being discussed. All this ideation was happening. All these fantastic new product ideas were coming out, but nobody wanted to pick up the ball and run with it. And when you picked up the ball and ran with it, when you boldly stood up and said, I'm going to take this on, I'm going to move this through the pipeline, people looked at you with relief because they were so timid. They didn't want to stick their necks out. They didn't want to take a risk. They didn't want to do anything different. They wanted to just sit in their comfortable jobs and do nothing. And that's not how you go through life. We, human beings, are now suffering under a plague of timidity. So many of us are now so timid, and it's not just in our driving, it's not just in our actions, and not just in our day-to-day lives, it's in our work, it's in our businesses, it's in everything around us. We are timid now. Most of us are timid. And if we decide to change that, if we decide to be bold, then all of a sudden, guess what happens? It's the bold ones that move ahead. It's the bold ones that disrupt. It's the bold ones that innovate. And it doesn't really take that much to break out of your timidity and be bold. You don't have to be bold all the time with everything and everyone. No, not necessarily. You can start small. Do something small. Take a small, bold step, like drive better on the freeway. Start to be bold. We are under a plague of timidity. We have this layer of fear sitting on top of us, keeping us so timid. And the timid ones are not the ones who are going to win. We need to be bold. And you'd be surprised at what would happen if you suddenly became the bold one in the group of the timids. People might actually pat you on the back and go, "Awesome, way to go, man. Good job. You stepped up." Stepping up is what we should be doing. As innovators, as startup founders, as futurists, we should be stepping up. We should be bold. We should stop with the timidity. Because right now, this plague of timidity is in the process of destroying the human race. And we don't want that. We want to uplift the human race. We want the human race to do better. And if we're not bold, we'll never get there. I mean, can you imagine what the human race would be today if we didn't have the inventors of old and the inventors of now being so bold as to create the things that they've created? Imagine the world without Edison. Imagine the world without Musk. Imagine the world without Bezos. Imagine the world without Gates. Imagine the world without Wilbur and Orville Wright. Imagine where the world would be if we didn't have bold innovators out there rising themselves up out of this sea of timidity that we seem to be stuck in and boldly going forward to push the human race, to improve the human race for everybody. Now, isn't that an awesome thing to think about? Isn't that an awesome thing to do? Just be bold. Look inside of you, pull out the inner boldness, and be bold. That's it for me for today. See you next time, and until then, don't forget to think future.